Hi everyone, this is Ellie from GFX Sport TV, and in these tutorials I'll be teaching you how to use Photoshop in few minutes. Yes, in few minutes. So in case you are an absolute beginner, then you are at the right place. Alright, so let's quickly dive into it. So the first thing we would like to do is to launch our Photoshop software, which I've already done here. So in case you've not done that, you can do that and follow along with the tutorials. And what we'll need to do is to set up a new document. So in order to set up a new document, you come to create new, and then you enter your document name over here. Enter your document name over here. Then you key in your project parameters like the width and height, and then the resolution. So once you are done and you are satisfied with your settings, you can simply click on OK in order to take us into the Photoshop window. Right, so as you can see, the canvas that we have set is already here based on our document settings. Right, so let me quickly take you guys through some few steps. So in order to make your background or your layer editable so that you can be able to manipulate it more, all you need to do is to go to the layer panel, make sure the layer is selected, which is this very layer, and then you double click on it. You can choose to rename it if you like. Yes, or you can still choose to rename it over here by double clicking and rename your layer. So I want to name this BG, background. Now, if you would like to import an image into Photoshop, what you need to do is you need to go to File, Menu, and then select Place Embedded, and then click on it and click on Place. Right, so we have successfully imported our photo into the Photoshop canvas. So now let me take you guys through some shortcut keys that would help you in the course of your project work in Photoshop. So the first one I would like to take is zoom. So zoom in and zoom out. On your keyboard you press Ctrl plus or Command plus in case you are using a Mac, and then to zoom out, Ctrl minus or Command minus. So that will zoom in and zoom out your project for you. And now if you want to create duplicates of your layer, all you need to do is you can use the shortcut key Ctrl J. So by selecting your layer, let me select the photo layer, and then you simply press Ctrl J on your keyboard. So that will give you duplicates or duplicates of that very layer. Right, so if you want to group your layers, you highlight all your layers and then press Ctrl G. So if we click on this little arrow over here, it's going to give us a drop down where you will see the layers that you have grouped or under this very group. You can choose to rename the group by double clicking on the group name or the layer name. So you can choose to rename the group by double clicking on the group name and then giving it your own name as you wish. So the next shortcut key I would like to teach you guys is scaling. So if you want to scale your object, make sure the object layer is selected from your layer panel, and then you hold down the Shift and Alt key, and then you click and drag from any of the edges. So that will scale it from the center for you. Or alternatively, you can simply hold down just the Shift key and then click and drag from any of the edges. So that is how you can scale your object in Photoshop. So if you like to display grid whilst working, you can simply use this shortcut key, which is Control and then apostrophe. So that will display a grid for you. Control key and then apostrophe, or Command and then apostrophe. So that will display a grid for you. So if you like to use the text tool on your keyboard, you can simply press T and that will activate the text tool for you. So click on any part of your Photoshop canvas and type your text. Let me expand this so that it can be more visible. Right, so that's it. So if you like to edit on what you have already typed, you can just double click on the text itself and then it will be editable for you to retype your text. Or you can simply come here to the text tool and then click in between your text and you can have it editable. So let me take you guys through some color correction functions. So if you want to have access to color correction functions in Adobe Photoshop, you can look right here. I have mine turned on already, which is the adjustment panel. Or in case it's not displayed for you and you would like to enable it, you can simply go to window and then you make sure adjustment is checked. As you can see, we have brightness, stroke contrast, levels, curves, exposure, vibrance, etc. So assuming we want to add some blur effects to this very image we have here, make sure the image layer is selected from the layer panel, and then we go to filter, go to blur, and then you can apply any of the blur effects you want. For now, let's use Gaussian blur. So try playing with the reduce parameters to get your desired results. So once that is okay for you, you can simply click on OK and it's being activated. You can simply click on OK. Right, so that is how you can add blur to your image. So let me teach you guys another color correction function, which is called curves. So curves are normally used to modify the tonal range of your image. It gives you a more control over your shadows, highlights, and midtones. So those are what curves are used for. So assuming I want to modify my tonal range for this particular image over here, I need to make sure my image is selected from the layer panel. So in order to access the curve dialog box on your keyboard, press Ctrl M and that displays the curve dialog box for you. So try playing with the lines, you know. The more you decrease it, the deeper the tone, and then the more you increase it or it goes up, the tone increases. Yeah, the tone becomes brighter. So that is what the curves is being used for. So you can choose to work on individual colors like red, green, and blue channels and tweak it. So that is what curves is used for. So if you would want to apply hue and saturation to your image, what you need to do is on your keyboard, go to Ctrl U. Ctrl U gives you the hue saturation dialog box. So now let's play along with some of the parameters. So for hue, this will display different color shades for you. As you can see here, different color shades. The saturation, you can choose to tone down the color dominance in your image, or you can choose to increase the color dominance in your image with the saturation parameter. So for lightness, as the name implies, you can use it to lighten your image and you can use it to darken your image. All right, so that's that for hue saturation. So the next thing I would like to introduce you guys to is layer styles. So in case you want to apply some stroke, some gradient, some bevel effects to your image, etc., Photoshop has got that function. So in order to apply a layer style to our layer, we must make sure that the layer is selected. The layer we want to use is selected. So select the layer you want to apply the layer style to, and then simply come here and click on effects. So it gives you the various layer style options. As you can see, bevel and emboss, stroke, inner shadow, inner glow, color overlay, gradient overlay, etc. So another option to have access to this is you can simply double click. So once you double click, it will open up the layer style panel for you with the layer effects. So let me select stroke, for example. It's not that visible, so I need to increase my stroke. So I need to play with, let's play with the parameters a bit. So click on stroke and then let me increase the size. So as you can see, it's applying to our text right there. Yes, so you can choose to increase and decrease the size, and then the opacity, so you can choose to control how dominant you want this to be. So if you want to fade it out a bit, you can do that right here. So just play along with some of the parameters for layer styles, and and see what you can achieve with it. So that's that for layer styles. Then another thing is, if you want to apply a color to a layer in Photoshop, you need to make sure that the layer is selected. So in my case here, let me select the background layer to use for this experiment. So you make sure the layer is selected, and then you come to the color panel over here and then select the color you need. So this will give you different shades of colors, so just play around it. So let me select a color to apply to my background. So let me go in for this. So in order to apply the color, you can use the, after selecting it, use the shortcut key Alt Backspace, and then that color is being applied to your layer. Okay, right. So assuming I want to apply another color to my text too, I make sure my text is selected, and then I go in for the desired color I would want to use for my text. So once it's selected, Alt Backspace, and that is it. We have successfully applied color to our text also. So you can use this method to apply color to your layer or any object in your Photoshop canvas. So we have successfully come to an end of this brief Photoshop introduction. So this can get you started with your graphics career in Adobe Photoshop. If you might like me to do videos on specific topics, feel free to respond under the comment section of this video. If you have a question or series of questions to ask regarding this very tutorial, feel free to let it out under the comment section, and I will respond to your comments as soon as I can. If this is your first time on my channel, or you are a returning viewer on this channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel for more informative contents in graphic design, not only in Adobe Photoshop. I'll be bringing you tutorials in other graphic design softwares also. So feel free to check out my other videos on this channel. I'm out. Hello guys, welcome to GFS Sport TV once again. This is Ellie, and in these very tutorials I'll be teaching you guys how to design a flyer. Yes, a stunning one, just like what you are seeing on the screen. I know some of you might have been expecting this. So fine, without wasting much time, let's quickly dive into it. Launch Photoshop, because we'll be using Photoshop for these very tutorials. So make sure your Photoshop is launched, and what we need to do is we need to set up a new working canvas or a new window. So go ahead and click on create new and name it. You can give it any name of your choice. So I would want to name this hot yummy burger underscore flyer. Yes, so this is going to be an e-flyer for social media, either IG or Facebook. So we'll be using the standard resolution, which is 1080 by 1080 pixels for the width and height. So make sure your project settings in terms of the width and height is 1080 by 1080, and your resolution should be 300. Yes, so leave the rest of the settings the way it is and then click on OK once you are done. Right, so we succeeded in setting up a new working canvas for our burger flyer design. So let's go ahead and save this whilst we work on the project. And I'll always advise you guys to always remember to save so that you don't get to lose your project you are working on, in order to avoid any back and forth. I have already done this thing in reference to the previous flyer I designed, so all I need to do is to overwrite it. Okay, right, so now let me import the flyer we'll be working on into our canvas. So all I need to do is to come to File and then click on Place Embed, and then click on the flyer we will be redesigning. Yes, so let me place it somewhere here so that we can be using it for reference. Okay, so what I need to do now is to lock this layer, the flyers layer, the reference, so that I don't mistakenly go and select it or manipulate it. Right, so now we have our background here, and I think that's cool. So I would like us to start with the background. Okay, so what I want us to do is we need to get this gradient background here. That's the orange looking background in the reference. So in order to do that, we need to create a new layer. You can come here and click on this to create a new layer, or you can simply duplicate the background layer by pressing Ctrl J and it will duplicate for you. Right, so let's name this as BG or orange BG, in order to differentiate it from the one at the beneath it, orange BG. Okay, right, so we need to apply our gradients just as I did in the reference flyer. So in order to do that, you need to come to your effects button and click on it, and then you select gradient overlay. Gradient overlay. Sorry, I need to give it a fill first of all. So in order to give it a fill, I simply come here, select any color, and then Alt backspace to apply. Yes, because the layer cannot be empty and you apply a gradient, so you need to fill it so that it doesn't become an empty layer. So let's go back to our effects panels. So click on it and then select gradient overlay. Right, I have already done this before, so that is why it's there. So let's assume I have a different color by default as gradients, and then I want to change it to these very gradient settings I have here. So I come to the position of the gradients. So I locate the picker based on the position of the color. So I click on my color, and then I apply the color I want to use. So you can just use the color picker tool and select a color from your canvas, or you can just come here and select a color of your choice. But I already have the color code for this previous job that I've done, so I need to refer to my color code. I'm going in for the red for now, so I simply copy my color code and then paste here. Right, okay, and then move to the other end of it by clicking on the picker over there, and then change the color to your preferred color. So I'm going to use orange over here. Right, so that's it, and you click on OK. So it is not in the position in which I want it to be. I want the orange to go up and then the red part of the gradient to come down, just as seen in the reference. So in order to do that, you need to tweak the angle. So just play along with the angle. Play along with the angle until you get your desired results. Okay. Yes. So this is what I'm looking out for. Yeah. So once you are done with your gradient settings, simply go ahead and click on OK. Right. So that's it. So let's lock this very background. Okay. You can choose not to lock it, but I prefer to lock backgrounds when working in my projects. So the next thing over here is the wooden texture which we have here. Something like a wooden table or wooden base or wooden floor. So in order to have access to some of the props I use for these very tutorials, you can check in the video description. I've already stated their links over there. So when you click on their links, then you can have access to save or download the images that I used in this project. Okay, right. So now let's go in for the wooden texture. So you simply come to File and then click on Place Embedded, and then browse for. I have already created. I've already saved them into a folder called Assets. So let me open my Assets folder and then bring it out. Wooden texture. Right. So our wooden texture has successfully been imported into the Photoshop canvas which we are working on. Good. So let me just crop out the portions I don't need for now. I don't need this white portion, so I simply go to my rectangular marquee tool and then create a border or a boundary around it, and then Control J, then delete the old one. Good. So this is our wooden texture. So now let me position it based on to correspond with what we have in the reference. Okay, so now you realize that let me zoom this. You will realize that we have some sort of perspective for the wooden floor. So if we want to create that perspective on our wooden texture, what we need to do is to press Ctrl T to bring out the transform controls, and then you right click and then you select perspective. Okay, So with perspective, in order to achieve our perspective, what we need to do is we need to click and drag from any of the edges at the ends, at the far ends. Okay, so you can either choose to drag from here or from here to create that perspective view for our image. Yes, I think this is okay for me. Right, so we have been able to achieve our perspective on the wooden texture. Okay, so let me name this wooden texture. Let me move it up a bit. Good. As I said, always remember to save. You can just go to file and click on save, or you can simply press Ctrl S and it will overwrite what you are doing, or it will override the previous works that you saved. Always save your work whilst working. Right, so now I would want to bring in our burger and our chips image. So by going to file, then you click on place embed, and then you browse for the image. So I have my burger image here. Click on place. Okay, so let me scale it to my desired size. Okay, so that's it. And then let's bring in the chips also. File, place embed, and then going for the chips, and then you hold down shift. If you want to scale an image, it's recommended that you hold down shift and alt, and then you click from any of the edges so that you can maintain the aspect ratio of the image, so that there will be no sort of distortion in any way, or you won't have one side longer or wider. So that's it. Right, and based on our reference, we'll realize the chips is standing. That's the French fries. So what you need to do is you need to come to any of the edges with your mouse cursor until it turns to a two arrow image, and then you click and drag. So what we are doing now is we are rotating the chips to be in the particular position we need. Okay, so this is how you can do rotation. So you click and drag, wait till your mouse cursor has turned into an arrow, and then you click and drag and tilt it based on your desired position. So once that is okay, you press enter to release your mouse. Right, so we have ended up positioning the burger and also the French fries in its pack, just as seen in the reference flyer we are using. So the next thing I want us to take is the text. Okay, over here we have hot yummy burger. We tantalize your taste buds with the best burgers you could ever imagine. Order yours today and all that. So we are going to be working on the text. All right, so the fonts, if you really like the fonts I used in this project, I have indicated, I have stated the names of the fonts that I used in the video description, so you can check it out. Okay, and download the same fonts, or if you would want to use your own fonts for this very tutorials, that's okay, but I would want to maintain the fonts that I used for this. All right, so let's get along. So you create a new layer, and then go in for your text tool, click in any part of your Photoshop canvas, and then type your text. So I already have my text saved down from the previous artwork I did, so I just have to copy it. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate this so that we can move quickly. Yeah, Control J gives you a duplicate of your layer or anything you are working on. Control J to duplicate this. To get this text, so I'm simply going to copy and paste. Okay, let's do that for other yours today. Same thing I'm going to do here. I'm simply going to copy and paste, and then I repeat the process till I'm done. Let me scale this down a bit. Okay, right. So now let's start positioning our text to correspond with what we have in the reference flyer. So let me make the reference flyer smaller so that we'll have enough space to work with. Always remember to save. Good. So hot yummy. Let me go to the font I use. I use Merienda for this. So I'm simply going to click on my text tool and then click and then make sure my font is selected. That's the particular font I want to manipulate or change the font style. So I use Merienda, so I'm going to come here and select Merienda, type it out, Merienda regular, right? So that's it. And then for my beggar, I'm going to scale it up a bit because I want it much bigger and also to correspond with what we have in the reference flyer. So I'm here to look at the font I use. Okay, so I used ICL Mijas. Excuse me if I didn't pronounce that well. Hey, what am I doing? I'm sorry. So I need to search for that font here from the font style. Right. So that's it. And then I need to scale it up a bit. And then make sure it's center aligned to the one at the top. One thing about design, accuracy is very, very important. So you need to make sure your fonts or your props are properly aligned. Okay, right. So let's do the same thing for the subtitle. Let's do the same thing for this. So I want to scale it down a bit and then check for the fonts I used. I used Corbel for this. So I'm going to go back to my text tool and then go to my font style parameters and then select Corbel. Yes. So I'm going to scale it down a bit. Let me scale this up a bit. Okay. Right. I think we are good on this one. And Then let's work on the rest of the text also. The same process as used for the previous ones. So with other yours to do, I use the font style called impact. So I'm quickly going to activate that whilst we move along. So I'm going to do the same for this also. I think this one I use Corbel. Yes. Okay. Right. So now let's work on the colors for the fonts. So as you can see, the Hot Yummy Burger is yellow. So I'm going to apply yellow to it. So make sure your font, the particular font you want the color to be applied on, is selected from your layer panel, and then you go to the color panel and select the particular color you would want to apply to it. So I'm going for yellow, and then to apply it, Alt backspace. Yeah, make sure that font is selected, and then Alt backspace. Okay, always remember to save. So I think we are done for the text. So the next thing I would want us to do is to add these lines over here, these curvy lines you are seeing here. So from the video description, you will see a link to download it. So I've already indicated a link for all the props I used in these very tutorials. So you can download all so that you can follow along with these tutorials. So you can choose to use your own props, okay? All right. So the curvy lines, let's bring it in. Curvy lines. I've already cropped it. Yeah, I'll be doing a video tutorials on how you can crop some of your props or images. Okay, so yeah, keep watching. I'll be doing a video tutorials on how you can crop images. Yes, but I've already cropped these ones for these very tutorials so that we don't waste much time. So I need to rasterize it, and then I need to select it because I want to change the color. So I want to give it white. So I simply go to my color panel and select white, and then click Alt backspace to activate the color on my object. Yes. So now we have it at the left hand side, and then in the image you realize in the flyer, in the reference flyer, you realize we already have it at both ends, both the left and the right. So we don't necessarily need to import another one and then apply another color. We can simply do this by doing a duplicate of the first one that we already have. So to do a duplicate, on your keyboard, press Ctrl J or Command J if you are using a Mac. So Ctrl J, yes, and then click and drag to the right end, because we are trying to create a duplicate of this one at the right end. And over here you will realize it has been flipped. So in order to do the same thing here, you come to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal, right. So that's it. Our object has been successfully flipped. So now let's go back to the reference flyer to check out the rest of the things we haven't done yet. So over here you can see we have this sun ray background. So it's also available in the video description. I'll drop a link there to download this, or in case you have something similar to follow along with the process. Yeah, to follow along with the project, feel free to, you know, use it. So let me import the one I already have. So file, place embed, and then I go in for my sun ray. Good. So let's rasterize it so that it can be editable. And then I would like to trim this. Okay, I would like to trim this up to where the wooden texture is starting from. So in order to do that, I simply need to go in for my rectangular marquee tool and then click and drag around the portion of the sun ray I want to crop out, or I would like to use. So once I'm done, then Control J to create a duplicate of my selection on a new layer, and then I go to the previous layer and delete it. Yes. So you realize over here it is carrying a different color shade. So what we have to do here is you need to make sure your sun ray layer is selected, and then you click on you hold down Control on your keyboard and click on the layer to select the layer itself, the object itself, because what we want to do here is we want to change the color. Okay, so I will go ahead and select let me check out the color that was used here. That's yellow. Okay, so I'll go ahead and select yellow, or white. Let me use white. You can still achieve that with white. And then come here and change the blend mode to screen. Sorry, I think we need to apply yellow. Right, so come to the blend mode and then change it to screen. So once you've changed it to screen, then you can reduce the opacity, or you can choose to do that. You can just choose to reduce the opacity without having to play around with the blend mode. Okay, right, so let me scale this up a bit in order to achieve something cool. Yes, so you realize this is overlapping, the sun ray is overlapping our beggar, so we need to move it behind the beggar layer. Yes, because it's a background, so we need to move it backwards. Good. Always remember to save your work. We are almost done. So what I did here is let's get back to the reference image. So you realize this portion of the sun ray has been faded a bit, so you can achieve that by using your eraser. So simply click on the eraser tool and then make sure the eraser brush is big enough to give you that fading effect you need, or that big or to be able to fade that big portion you need quickly, just like what I'm doing here. So once you are done, you drop your eraser by clicking on the move tool. Yes, so this is how I came out with this. Okay, right. So the next thing we have here is you realize there's a base for the contact information. There's a black base, so let's quickly do the black base. So create a new layer and then go in for your rounded rectangle tool, because as you can see, based on the reference image, the edges are rounded. Okay, so going for your rounded rectangle tool and then select the black color, or you can choose to draw it and then applying the color to it later, however you want to do that. So let's click and drag on our canvas at the particular position we want it to be. Yes, so that's it. So you need to rasterize it in order to make it editable, because we will still manipulate it. Right, so now back to our reference image. Have you noticed a difference? There is this part has been like there's some sort of arc created here. So in order to achieve that on our rounded rectangle, make sure the rounded rectangle is selected, and then on your keyboard press Ctrl T to bring out the transform controls, and then right click on your object, which is the rounded rectangle we are using, and then select warp. Warp will give you that function. Okay, then you click and drag, around the portion that you want to bench, and then once you are done you press enter. Let me expand this a bit, move it up a bit. Let me space this out because we'll be adding icons. Good. So now we have achieved our base where the contact details are displayed, okay, or the background where the contact details are displayed. So now the next thing I would like us to take is the icons. Yes, so the icons are also, the link to the particular icons I use for this project are listed in the video description, or you can choose to use any one you have for this tutorial. That's fine. The idea is for you to understand how this is being achieved. So now let me go ahead and import my icons into my canvas by going to File, click on Place Embed, and I would like to go in for my phone icon first of all. Scale it down to the desired size I want. And it's not visible because of the color, so I need to rasterize it so that I can manipulate it, and then make sure it's selected by holding down Control and clicking till you see this dotted moving icon, object around it. That will show that you have selected it, and then going for the color. So you can simply come here to the color panel to select your color, but I would like to pick the same color I used here, the same yellow. So I need to go to my eyedropper tool, yes, to select the color I need. So once that is done, then I press Alt Backspace to activate the color on my icon. So as you can see, the color has been activated. So now we need to repeat this for the email address and also the location. So it is the same process. So let me quickly go ahead and do that. Scale it down. Make sure it's rasterized so that it can be editable. Select it and then apply the color. Drag into the desired position. So I have to do the same for the location also. Place embedded location. space this out a bit so that it looks uniform. So you can just simply right click to select your layer. It will be easy for you to locate your layer if you have named your layer, just as I've done here. Okay. So that's it. And then let's get back to our reference image. You realize that there's a shadow beneath. For it to look more realistic, that the beggar is on a floor, or is on the table, or is on the wooden texture, or the wooden object itself. So in order to achieve that, you can simply go in for the ellipse tool from your toolbar. Click on the ellipse tool, click and drag behind the beggar layer. It is above, so I need to send it behind by clicking and dragging behind the beggar layer. And this is not the color we need for the shadow. So for the shadow we need black. So go to your color panel and select black, and then alt backspace, and then rasterize it to make sure it's editable. Okay, yes, so that is it. But this ain't looking like a shadow, so we need to make it more realistic. So in order to do that, what we need to do is we need to come to the eraser tool and fade the edges a bit. So select the eraser tool and then play with the brush size to make sure this is the brush size, to make sure the size of the brush is okay for you. Yes, so you click and drag around the edges of the ellipse or the circle, anyhow you want to call it. Right, so we are getting there. Then you can scale it a bit. Let me still wipe this portion a bit with my eraser tool. So once you are done, it's still not looking like a real shadow, it's too thick. So come to the opacity and then reduce it from here. From your layer panel, you reduce the opacity a bit to show a more refined shadow. Good. Let me increase it a bit. Right, so we've come to the end of this tutorial. Now we are done with our reference image. Let me take it off. We successfully come to the end of this tutorial. Sorry, I think there's one more thing we didn't apply. Can you see that under the beggar, that's behind the beggar, we have a shadow there? Okay, so in order to do that, we make sure our beggar layer is selected and then duplicate it by pressing Ctrl J, and then the layer beneath it is what you apply the shadow layer to. So with that, we need a black color, so we go in for our black and then press Alt backspace. Okay, and then click and drag it to change the position a bit. Right, so that's it. We have successfully applied our shadow effects to our text. So let me go back to look at the reference image. Right, so I think we successfully come to an end of this tutorial of flyer creation. So if you enjoy this video and you would love more exciting contents, I mean, simply give your comment under the comment section. And also, if you would want me to produce tutorials on specific topics, fine, feel free to also let me know under the comment section. Okay, so even if it's not about Photoshop and it's about any other graphic application that you want me to create a tutorial about, feel free to share your opinion under the comment section, and I will surely do something about it. Okay, if this is your first time of visiting my channel, I would urge you to subscribe to my channel, as I'll be bringing you more and more informative contents in this regard. And make sure to share, make sure to like my videos, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.